We are joined now by the great Greg McElroy from ESPN. Also, Mac and Cube in the morning. You and Cole Kubelik arguing with one another on a daily basis. It's a wonderful thing. But Greg, I want to ask you about something. You said something on the Ranking Reveal show that I thought was really insightful and had not thought about it this way. You said you were arguing over whether they take the four best or the four most deserving. And you said it's always been the four that the committee could justify the easiest.
Yes.
That's the best way to put it.
It's the committee wants to take the path of least resistance, and I don't blame them. By the way, they're in an impossible situation.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really look at it, and I've gone back through years and years and years and 10 years now, and we haven't really had drama since 2018.
Yeah.
2019 was very clear cut. The number 5 team was Georgia, who had 2 losses. 2020 was A&M, who lost by 1 million to Alabama. 21, there was no drama. Notre Dame was number 5. They lost to Cincy, who got in. And 22, there was no drama because Alabama was number 5 with 2 losses. So there really hasn't been drama since 2018. And that was when Oklahoma, who was led by Kyler Murray, they lost by 3 to Texas in the Red River rivalry game. And they actually avenged their loss in the Big 12 title game. And Ohio State, who is 12-1 Big Ten champs, they were left out because they lost to Purdue by 29. So that was really the last time that there was drama and there was actually a conversation to be had. But there's never been a time in which they've honored the 4 best.
Yeah.
They say that, but that's fine. Like, the same thing I tell my kids, like, what you tell me is different than what you do. Like, your actions speak so loudly, I can't hear what you say. That's like common vernacular, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the committee's actions, and I'm not saying they're wrong, by the way. That's not wrong to me at all. I think it's probably the way I would do it too. But how can I tell you right now that in 2016, USC, who had won 8 straight when Sam Darnold got put in the lineup, they were one of the 4 best teams at the end of the year, but they were 9-3. Like, you can't put them in over a 1-loss Washington team in the same conference. You can't. Penn State, who beat Ohio State, who got in the playoff, but Ohio State had 1 loss. Penn State had 2 early in the year, but they were definitely one of the 4 best teams. They didn't get in because they had 2 losses. So the committee is going to take the path of least resistance, and I don't blame them, because if you start saying, well, this team's better than this team, well, that's a very subjective term. And while I think that it'd be easy for us to go about it that way, but here's the problem, is you would take Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, and Ohio State, and those 4 teams would have playoff spots.
Right.
And then they have to play their way out of the playoff. That's not right. That's not right. So you're basically saying, well, Florida State, you got to earn your way in, but those teams, they have them locked down until they play their way out. And that's not right. So I'm totally fine with how the committee handles it.
Prize Picks is the most fun daily fantasy platform in America. I'm looking through the blocks for this weekend, the squares that you can pick this weekend. So here's what you do. You download the Prize Picks app. You use the code Andy, and they will match your first deposit up to $100. So you use that code Andy, deposit $100, they will match $100, and you'll have $200 to play with. You go 50, they'll match 50, you'd have $100 to play with. That's how it works. So you go to Prize Picks, and you pick 2 or more squares. So you can start with 2, you can go up to 5 or 6 squares, and basically the amount of squares you pick is how many times you can increase your money. So you can go up to 25 times your money if you are feeling like you are a real expert. But there's a lot of great college football options this weekend. I can tell you right now, these guys think the Pac-12 championship game is going to be a shootout. Bo Nix's number for passing yards, 326.5. So that's you can pick more than or less than. Michael Penix Jr., Washington quarterback, his passing yardage number, 300.5. If these 2 QBs combine for 600 yards in this game, it is going to be a blast to watch. And if you have those 2 squares on Prize Picks, you're going to be enjoying that shootout. Another guy to watch, Diego Pavia, New Mexico State. We saw him whipping up on Auburn a couple weeks ago. his number for passing yards only 169 and a half. So that could be a fun one in the Conference USA championship game. The rushing and receiving yard combo, you're going to hear a little bit about Ashton Genty later in the show when we talk to Bush Hamden. So Ashton Genty is the Boise State running back who also is very dangerous catching the ball out of the backfield. So his combo rushing receiving yard total for the Mountain West championship game is 113 and a half. Ollie Gordon for Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game, 125 and a half. We'll see how big a game he can have as Oklahoma State has to deal with that monster defensive line at Texas. Bucky Irving in the Pac-12 championship game, 133 and a half. So lots of fun options. You can go right up until the games start and figure out exactly what you want to do. And of course, Prize Picks has every sports. They have the NFL, the NBA, MLB. There's always a way to play on Prize Picks. So download the app, use that referral code Andy. They will match your first deposit up to $100. This is going to be a fun Prize Picks weekend. Watch for me on Twitter on Friday night, on Saturday morning as well. I'm going to probably be crowdsourcing some of my picks because some of my instincts are not great. And some of your advice is very good. I can't promise I'll listen, but I will do my best. And I think you guys can probably help me out a little bit. So be watching Andy_Staples on Twitter, and we'll do our Prize Picks squares together. Well, and you're right about the lack of drama since 2018. And it feels like, unless there's a very specific set of circumstances, there will be some drama this year, whether it's deciding between one loss Oregon if they beat Washington and one loss Texas if they beat Oklahoma State and everybody else goes chalk, or if there's that nuclear option and Alabama beats Georgia and all of a sudden you got to figure out how the heck you're going to order this thing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are so no one. There have been 3 examples of which a team has lost the conference championship game and still made the playoff. It's actually happened each of the last 3 years.
ECU last year, Georgia the year before.
Yep, and then the year before that, that was
Notre Dame, Clemson.
Notre Dame. Yeah, so Notre Dame was the other one. So it's happened 3 times, but no team that started at 1 has ever moved out. And I think Georgia runs that risk if they lose. Because the committee has told us a few things already. There's things that we know for certain based on what the committee has done to this point. 1, the committee thinks Oregon's better than Texas.
Right.
I personally think there's a debate to be had there, but the committee won't acknowledge it. So my opinion does not matter. It doesn't. It just doesn't.
Well, it matters to me, Greg. And so I want to ask you this because I feel the same way. Like the assumption that Oregon gets in if they beat Washington, but Texas doesn't, if they're a 12-1 champ, still doesn't make sense to me because, like, Oregon, as good as they've been, and they've been great lately, like Texas's win against Alabama is better than any win they have. Now, if Oregon beats Washington, they'll have a win like that too, but it'll still be kind of even, and Texas's strength of schedule will be very high. You've got the Texas-Oklahoma State game. Like, what can Texas do in the Big 12 championship game to give itself a chance to be in the conversation?
I don't think they can do anything. I think they have to win, obviously, and just hope for chaos. I think Texas needs, and I've tried to make it as clear as possible, mostly because I deal with Alabama fans so regularly. Here is the clearest path. All right. You go line by line. Georgia winning in, Michigan winning in, Washington winning in, Florida State winning in, Oregon winning in. Like those teams are all winning in. The committee's told us that. Like the committee has said that Oregon is better than Texas. I would offer up a debate there. Not saying that I would win the debate. I just think there needs to be a debate that's had. I wouldn't even push back against Oregon. I think they're amazing. I think they're a great football team and a dominant football team. So if they get in, I have no problem at all. But the committee has already told us that they are better than Texas, which I'm fine with. I get. And the committee has also said that head-to-head matters. That's why Texas is in front of Alabama. And honestly, can't push back on that. That makes sense.
They played.
That makes sense to me. I don't have any problems with that. I know it's 12 weeks ago. I get all that. I know that teams can change and get better. I understand that. But I can consume that. I can understand that. So here's pretty clear. Top 5 teams are winning in. Let's skip Ohio State for a moment. Texas needs one upset. One. And I'm not talking about Washington over Oregon. I'm not talking about that. Pac-12 winners in.
Yeah, so you need Louisville to beat Florida State. Basically.
You need Louisville to beat Florida State. You need Bama to beat Georgia. One of the other.
Bama beating Georgia thing, though, I have, and maybe it's just me, having watched everybody, and that's another of your actions, because it feels like Alabama always gets some benefit of the doubt. Georgia has now moved into the benefit of the doubt territory. I still think if Alabama beats Georgia, they just snow globe this sucker and shake it up and say, okay, we're going to put Alabama in because they're the SEC champ and they beat the team we think's the best team, and then we're going to put Texas in because they beat Alabama, and you just sort of figure it out from there.
That's not what they should do; it's what they will do.
Right.
So yeah, I don't disagree with any of you. I have a hard time envisioning a scenario like if you want the four best, to me, the four best teams, I would take the winner of the SEC champ. I would take Michigan. I would take the winner of the Pac-12, and I would take Texas. Like I think those are the four best teams, but it's not the four best teams. You cannot tell me that Florida State has not earned a right to play for the championship. They have earned that right. Like, do I think they're one of the four best teams? If they played Texas, I would pick Texas. If they played Bama, I would pick Bama. If they played Georgia, I would pick Georgia. If they played Ohio State, I'd probably pick Ohio State. But I cannot, in good conscience, while still having tremendous respect for the regular season, say that Florida State doesn't deserve a chance. They absolutely deserve a chance.
And we haven't seen an undefeated Power 5 conference champ left out.
It's not going to happen. Like we have wasted more time on the playoff show in talking about, well, what if Florida State, they don't have their quarterback? Like we're wasting time. They're going to get in, and they should. Yeah. I mean, if we hold the sanctity of the college football regular season, like, because it is, to me, the college football regular season is like a sacred event. It's so important. It's so valuable, and the results have to matter. Florida State won all their results, and they did not play a schedule that was comparable to Liberty.
Right.
They played against an LSU team that they dominated. They played against a Clemson team that has gotten better and better and better and beat them at their place. Like Florida State doesn't have a terrible resume at all. Now, I think they ebb and flow, and I think they're inconsistent. But I also acknowledge that they're a team that's undefeated. And ultimately, I don't care if you win by 1 or 100. If you win the games, you deserve credit. So I think Florida State is absolutely in complete control of their own destiny, which is why Texas needs help, which is why Alabama needs help. But in the event in which Louisville beats Florida State, then I think Texas and Alabama will get in the event that Bama beats Georgia. So that I think Georgia would be left out in that scenario. I think Georgia would be 5. Followed closely by the loser of the Pac-12 title game, followed closely by Florida State, followed closely by Ohio State.
So I was on the radio with Rick Neuheisel on Thursday, and he brought this up, and I hadn't thought about it. But if somebody just said, let's do the 12 team right now, like who says no? Like tell the committee, hey guys, don't worry. We're not going to get mad at you until you get to number 11.
Well, yes, I understand that. I've always said that what we should do as a sport, but I'm, logistically speaking and getting home fields ready and bowl tie-ins and all that stuff. I've always said we should expand or contract the playoff based on teams that are qualified. So in this particular case, this year, and we'll see how the results play out this weekend, but let's just get rid of conference championship games and there's 8 teams with 1 or 0 losses. Well, this would be a year in which there should be an 8-team playoff. Maybe some years there's 10. Maybe some years there's 6. Maybe some years there's 4. Maybe some years there's 2. But we should expand and contract accordingly based on what the teams have done up to that point to be in position to potentially win a championship. So not all schedules are created equal. So, maybe there's a 2-loss team that we should consider one year. But if you pass some type of, I'm sure there's some metric for this. If you are beyond a certain metric, you're in the playoff. If you're below the metric, the playoff cuts off. So it might have 9 teams one year, might have 5 teams one other year. And then guess what? If there's 5 teams, the first overall seed gets a bye, and then 2 through 5 play each other in a little round robin. So first team gets 2 byes or whatever, and then you rock and roll. Like that, to me, it seemed, or you have the 4 or 5 play each other, and then the first 3 teams get a bye, and then you have a 14 playoff from there. So I don't feel like it's that difficult, but I think that
That sound you hear is Greg's bosses at ESPN having panic attacks simultaneously.
Well, you want to talk about the playoff? You want to talk about the playoff ranking show going up, like
Yes.
you know, in a trajectory and in some type of crazy parabolic uptick. That would do it, but it's not a realistic thing. But this year is a unique year. I mean, this is the first time we've had this many teams that are qualified. And when you want to disqualify teams at this point or not is up to you.
Yeah.
But there really are. I think there are 8 teams that deserve at least a conversation to make the playoff, including that of Ohio State, because if it's the 4 best, depending on how things shake out this weekend, they could find their way in too.
There is a path. There's definitely a path. Greg, thank you so much. I know that you're South Lake Carroll Dragons legend, returning to the Lone Star State, returning to the Metroplex. So have fun this weekend.
Yeah, South Lake Carroll. I think we play Byron Nelson tomorrow in the 4th round of the playoffs. So hopefully the Dragons will hold serve.
Thank you, Greg.
See you, bud.
Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples on 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.